Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the SHSA TV Food Safety Webinar. My name is Irene Lamb, and I am a Safety Advisor with the SHSA. If you have any questions during the broadcast, please type them into the questions box and a Safety Advisor will get back to you. If we don't answer your question during the webinar, we will email you afterwards. If you're watching at a computer with more than one person, please type in everyone's names into the questions box so that we can accurately measure the number of viewers attending today. This video will also be available to watch on YouTube later on after this broadcast. So today we are featuring a special guest, Russell Scott of Food Safety First. Food Safety First offers food safety courses, certificates, training, inspections, equipment sales, and more. Russell is a Saskatchewan's Food Safety First inspector. Before our interview with Russell, we'll start off first with a short video. This video is brought to you by the Canadian Partnership for Consumer Food Safety Education.
Food handling safety risks at home are more common than most people think. The 4 easy lessons of clean, separate, cook, and chill can help prevent harmful bacteria from making your family sick. Wash your hands with warm water and soap for 20 seconds before and after handling food. Also, wash cutting boards, dishes, utensils, and countertops with hot soapy water before and after preparing each food item and before going on to the next. Rinse all fresh fruits and vegetables under cool running tap water, including those that have skins and rinds that will not be eaten. Scrub each firm-skinned fruit and vegetable with a clean vegetable brush while rinsing. Don't cross-contaminate. Keep raw meat, poultry, seafood, and their juices apart from other food items in your shopping cart, grocery bag, and in your refrigerator. Use one cutting board for fresh produce and a separate one for raw meat, poultry, and seafood. Never place cooked food on an unwashed plate that previously held raw meat, poultry, seafood, or eggs. Cook to safe temperature. Color is not a reliable indicator of doneness. Use a food thermometer to measure the internal temperature of cooked foods. Make sure that meat, poultry, egg dishes, casseroles, other foods and leftovers are cooked to the internal temperatures shown in the chart. Never defrost food at room temperature. There are 3 safe ways to defrost food: in the refrigerator, in cold water that's changed every 30 minutes, and in the microwave. Food thawed in the microwave should be cooked immediately. Refrigerate promptly. Bacteria multiply fastest at temperatures between 4 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees Celsius, so chilling food promptly is one of the most effective ways to reduce the risk of microbial foodborne illness. Refrigerate or freeze meat, poultry, eggs, and other perishables within 2 hours of purchase or preparation. Keep the fridge at 4 degrees Celsius or lower and use a refrigerator thermometer to check the temperature. For more information, visit befoodsafe.ca.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Russell. So firstly, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, such as your personal history and how you got started with Food Safety First?
Thank you, Irene, for having me. Well, my name's Russell, and I came from Melfort originally and ended up getting in a car and driving out to Vancouver to learn to be a public health inspector. I certified as a public health inspector in 1986, worked in Estevan for a couple years, and then moved to Saskatoon and worked as a public health inspector there for 24 years. As a public health inspector, like any public health inspector throughout the province, I inspected restaurants and grocery stores, businesses that cater food, foods that were served in daycares or group homes. Anywhere there was food, that's where we inspect. I had a specialized role in Saskatoon of investigating food poisoning outbreaks to make sure that they don't occur or to stop their source, to make sure that other people aren't affected as well. Most notably, I've been known to teach food handling courses all the way from back in Estevan days to Saskatoon, and also teaching it on behalf of SAIST at the University of Saskatchewan and on a satellite one time where it was broadcast live via satellite through SCN Telecommunications Network. For 10 years now, I've been teaching food safety training on my own under the banner Food Safety First, simply to meet the needs of Saskatchewan and food service people that want to get in the food industry or who are already in the food industry. I've taught courses all across Saskatchewan, from Swift Current to Moose Jaw, Yorkton, Regina, Wollaston, Key Lake, Spiritwood, basically pretty well throughout the whole province of Saskatchewan, including obviously Saskatoon and surrounding areas.
Thank you. You have a lot of experience in this area. So tell me about the course that you teach.
The course that I teach, it's called Food Safe, and it's out of Vancouver. It was developed way back in the early years of 1986 and has been revised 5 times since. And they've kept up to date with all new material because of the new technology involved in it. This course that I teach, there's an example of the certificate that I have that I hand out to each one of our participants that successfully complete the course, obviously, is nationally recognized and provincially accredited and meeting the needs of Saskatchewan food safety legislation. Food safe training that I involve myself with helps prevent food poisoning and certifies people all at the same time. So you learn how to cook food safely and get your food safe certificate. I have scheduled courses that are available for anyone to attend. You can see the schedule on the website, or private courses as well, where group homes or daycares or restaurants, brand new restaurants, existing restaurants, any hotels, anybody that's wanting to take the course privately on their own as a private group. So I see myself quite often doing private groups, but I also see many people coming in to the regular scheduled courses as well. Basically, wherever you want it, when you want it, we come to you.
Very nice. So do you have manuals and exams in different languages?
Yes, the manuals themselves come in about 4 or 5 languages. They come in English, Chinese, Punjabi, Korean, and French, and I brought the examples here of the books. Obviously, here's our English book, and each participant gets a book. As far as the exams go, I wish I could hand out the exam in every language. However, I'm restricted to only 11. And those exams are available in English, Japanese, Vietnamese, Spanish, Arabic, Farsi, Tagalog, Chinese, Punjabi, Korean, and French. But only the book is available in Chinese, Punjabi, Korean, and French.
Good. So after teaching since 2006, how many people have you taught?
A lot of people, but I've done some calculations, and 290 classes I've taught over the last 10 years. Well over 9,000 people. 9,000 certificates have been issued and counting.
So why do you teach food safety training?
Well, it's simply because of this. You can't see the disease, and you can't smell the disease. And when you go and eat this, you can't taste it. So that's why we need to teach food safety. We need to teach how to make food safe so that when people eat this, be it at home or the clients that you serve at work or your customers, that it's going to make safe food for people to eat. And as well, people need this training, need this certification so that they can get employment in the food industry in Saskatchewan. Under Section 26, it requires at least 1 person per shift having this course.
Okay, good. So you already kind of answered my question, but how many people on staff are legally required to have a certificate in food safety training?
1 person per shift when you're working in a restaurant, a deli, catering business, anything to do with food that's prepared for the public's consumption, that's prepared for immediate use, and basically anywhere there's food, including special events as well, like outdoor fairs and exhibitions. Those people have to have training as well in food safety. Recertifying, that question always comes up. How often do I have to retake this course? In the province of Saskatchewan, they ask this course be done every 5 years.
Good to know. So what are the consequences of mishandling food and not having good food safety?
Well, unfortunately, people eat the food and do get sick. The Government of Canada estimates that well over 4 million Canadians come down with food poisoning every year. That's 1 in 8. That's way too many. It causes also over 11,000 hospitalizations because people have ate the food or drank the water and got sick. And as well, there's well over 200 deaths every year in Canada alone because of something they ate or drank. Medical experts always also estimate a cost associated with that to be over $1 billion annually because of something they ate or drank, loss of productivity, and medical expenses.
Wow, I didn't realize how many people actually die from food poisoning.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when you come across those situations. Obviously, it's not good. It's not good for the family, the people that are involved, and it's not good for the establishment that has provided those food services.
So what are the possible symptoms of foodborne illnesses?
Your common ones are your vomiting, cramps, nausea, diarrhea, fever, chills, headache. Those are very, very common. But then there's other ones as well, like muscular stiffness, jaundice, prostration, sore throat, visual difficulty, dry mouth, dizziness, confusion, spasms, labored breathing. My wife had labored breathing. I ended up taking her to the hospital. She had a baby. 2 years later, she had the same symptom all over again, and she had another baby. So I have 2 daughters now. But it could have been food poisoning because it, could have been the water she drank that caused this illness that we would maybe talk about. Weight loss, difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, burning sensation of the back of the neck, and unfortunately as well, it is sometimes fatal, like we said.
So what can we do to prevent food poisoning?
Well, many studies have shown what has caused illness, and from those studies we learned about the different mistakes that we make. Mistakes in making sure the food is from an approved source, making sure that the transportation is followed, contamination of the food itself, sanitizing food contact surfaces, maybe preparing, maybe there's mistakes in cooking or hot holding or serving. So all of these now we've been able to identify the different mistakes that we've made. We have a better understanding, and because of that understanding we've changed the course. So the course that you take nowadays is way different than it was like 20 years ago. So in essence, how can you prevent food poisoning? Take a food safe course.
So I can imagine that restaurants and hotels could suffer financially if they were the cause of food poisoning outbreak. What are your thoughts on this?
Bad news travels fast. No doubt about it. Loss of reputation right away. You can have a complaint against your establishment and not even be involved with it. Salmonella is the most common food poisoning, and it can happen 2 or 3 days later that the person ends up getting cramps and diarrhea. But they're blaming you because the last thing they ate is at your restaurant. So we need to make sure that we get to the bottom of it, because financially it's going to be disastrous. So we need to talk quite a bit about complaints. What to do when a complaint comes to your establishment. What do you do when you get sick? Who do you talk to? Who do you report this to? What should you do with that food that you suspect might be causing that illness? Who do you call? Call your public health inspector.
So we can see that you've brought a lot of props here today for us. So why have you brought these chickens?
Well, the chickens are the most well-known in the province. This is Sam, and this is his wife Ella. And Sam and Ella, they're a couple, and they always go together. And what disease, Irene, do you think you get from eating undercooked chicken?
Salmonella.
Salmonella. So you see, it works. And it's with these props that I bring with me that help and assist me teach the course, make it memorable, maybe a little bit humorous and memorable in the way of being able to tell everybody when they go home or back to work, hey, we talked about salmonella. And those kind of things, I think, really address different situations that people are not accustomed to.
Yes, makes it more memorable.
Not everybody uses the word salmonella, but after the course, I see it used quite commonly.
Good. So I see you have a bunch of different types of thermometers here. Could you
That's
describe
right.
them?
Yeah, I ask people to buy a thermometer after taking the course, if they haven't got one already. This is your typical thermometer where you take it out, you sanitize it, and then you can put it right into the food and check the temperature. Obviously, quite a bit of the course that we talks about temperature control. If you don't have a thermometer, you can't tell what the temperature is. It's not really accurate by putting your thumb in the French toast to see what the temperature is to make sure it's out of the danger zone. So we ask people to buy a thermometer, and we actually calibrate it. When we're in the course, we actually show people how to calibrate, because not all thermometers are accurate. We have to make sure that the accuracy is there. So we calibrate our thermometer, and then we talk about how to check the temperatures of the foods that we're worried about.
Okay. So what about these chemical test strips up there?
Okay, yeah, that's another good one, where restaurants have to, by law, have these on hand so that they can rip this paper off, dip it into the sink with the sanitizer in there. It will change color, and you'll be able to identify if it's got the right amount of chemical in there. In this case here, chlorine. It could be quaternary ammonia or iodine. At home, we also talk about, well, what do you do at home because you don't have those chemical test strips? Well, you take your bottle of bleach, take 1 caffull, 1 ounce per gallon, in an ice cream pail full of water. Usually it's 4.5 liters of water. So one of those will be enough to be close to that 100 parts per million. So at home use, practical. I don't have a measuring device like this chemical test kit. What can I do? Well, that's another thing that you can do. Reminding people as well that if they left their bleach at the cottage and they come back in the springtime, it's not going to be as strong as it was when they left it there in the fall.
What about this rag here?
Well, this is the rag that I clean up everything with, and you can see that it's not that clean. So if I cleaned the table and then somebody had some silverware that had some spots on it, that you were not going to do this to clean it or to even dry it off after you used the wash, rinse, sanitize method in the 3-compartment sink. So letting things air dry is very important. And when should we use a wiper? It should have a little bit of bleach in there to make sure that it's going to be killing germs, not spreading germs as cross-contamination. So we talk about the right amount of bleach that needs to be in here, when to use this, and how to use this.
Good. What about this fecal collector?
Well, sometimes people do get sick, and so we have to check what's in their stool, what bacteria are they actually carrying. So we have stool sample container. So we put the stool in here, and we also talk about how do we put the stool in here. As one gentleman said to me one time, well, how can he convince his wife to hold the bottle? Well, no, that's not the right way to do it. First thing we do is we put up the toilet seat and put some plastic wrap over the bowl, put the seat down, and then we get to scoop. And because you have diarrhea, you might have to paddle a little bit to get enough in there. But we don't have to roll up the rim to win here. Half is plenty, 3/4 is more than enough.
That was pretty graphic.
Well, you asked.
So what about this MSG?
MSG.
Yeah.
Some people will put this MSG, and we have it as a sample that we show people so that they get an idea. They've heard of what MSG is, but they've never really seen it. So it gives you an idea, okay, well, that's what it looks like. And what's it for? Well, we put it into a lot of our cooking and to make the food enhanced, a flavor. And some people, however, will have a reaction like they're feeling like they're having a heart attack, where their chest gets tight and their sweat, and next thing you know, they're calling for an ambulance thinking that this is very, very serious. Well, it is serious, but it's only because of this. So some people are allergic to that and can't tolerate that in their system. So we as food handlers have to be very aware of food allergies, and this being one of them.
So what about this? I'm curious about these bean pods that you brought.
Well, these seeds, are any typical seeds that we buy at a grocery store or at your local farmer's market or wherever you buy seeds. These seeds are no different. You put these in the ground and they're going to grow. Now, they could be 10 years old and they're still going to grow. These seeds are exactly like spores in the food. They are waiting for the right conditions to come out. So they need protein, moisture, warmth, all of those things that these seeds need is what our spores are using in the food. So if we visualize this, we can easily visualize what's happening in the food, even though we would need a microscope to see these germinate and grow within our foods. So understanding how seeds work is the same way as understanding how the spores work in our food, which cause foodborne illness, food poisoning.
And over here, I think you mentioned you brought some powder.
Well, this powder here, I put it on my hands. It's glow germ is what we call it.
Okay.
And this, you just simply put it on your hands, and if you shook somebody's hand, right away we can tell by just putting the lights on our hand that it glows.
Oh, yes.
And turn your hands up so we can see everybody. It's glowing like crazy. So it's just a matter of being able to transfer my germs to you. That's exactly what this powder demonstrates. And you could shake somebody else's hand, and they could shake somebody else's hand, and so on and so on and so on. And that powder, that glow, the simulated bacteria, will show how easy it is to spread. So be careful you don't touch your nose.
Okay. What about this tin can thing?
Well, we all talk about different storage conditions, and this tin can, believe it or not, is supposed to be refrigerated. It says right on the label, partly preserved, keep refrigerated. So foods that are manufactured in Canada, generally you don't see that. But foods that are coming from outside of Canada, they require refrigeration to stop the bacteria from growing. So again, one more example of what can we bring in to show people on what to watch for when they're handling food.
Oh, good. What about this?
Well, that's another chemical test kit.
Okay.
This is for quaternary ammonia. The one that we showed you before is for the chlorine. So this is going to be a different color code, and it's going to have a different strength. So for quaternary ammonia, we want around 200. So that's the one for quaternary ammonia. The other one we don't have on display here is for iodine.
Oh, okay. Last one. So what about this banana here? Why have you brought this for us?
Well, this banana, that's my lunch.
Oh. Okay, so is there any way to tell what food item caused the food poisoning?
There is. The best thing you can do is call the public health inspectors. It's their job to investigate food poisoning outbreaks, so make sure that you help them do their job. Get names of people that had been at that event or who had consumed those foods. Get phone numbers, get addresses, and if there's any food that's around that may be suspect, have that placed in the fridge. Put a label on it, sample, make sure no one eats it. So secure the food. Get a hold of the inspectors and help them do their job.
Okay, very good. So as a consumer, is there any way that I can go into a restaurant or a public eating establishment and identify if the food safety is good in the kitchen without actually stepping foot into the galley?
Well, not really. There are some old wives' tales that I've been aware of, and that is, well, I inspect the restaurant bathroom. That way I know what the kitchen is like, probably. So some people go by that. Some other people check and see if maybe there's a couple signs on the wall that show about food safety. Maybe a food safe certificate might be something that they check out and that's proudly displayed by the restaurant themselves. But one thing that's been out recently is that there is a website that you can go to look at restaurant inspection reports to see what is the last inspection report on this establishment that you want to take me out to.
Oh, that's good to know. So what are some common misconceptions about food safety?
Bad food smells bad. You can not tell by looking at that it's going to make you sick. You can't smell it, you can't taste it, and you just have no way of knowing that that's going to make you sick. So during the course, we have to talk about how do you handle that food. If you handle it properly, quite likely it's going to be a safe food for your customers. So bad food smells bad, that's not correct. And tell by looking at it, that's another one. Oh, I could tell by looking at that, don't eat that. Another one is the last thing you ate made you sick. We already talked about salmonella. It can happen 2 or 3 days later. The early incubation for salmonella is as soon as 6 hours. The longest usually probably about 72 hours. So it varies quite a bit. So it's not always going to be the last thing you ate. Another one is let the hot food cool down first. Don't put it right into the fridge right away or it will sour. There is a proper way to cool things down, and we don't just let it sit at room temperature for long periods of time and then put it in the fridge. That's absolutely wrong. Another one too is cook it really well, because cooking will kill everything. That's not true. And another one that I like to talk about quite a bit in the class, obviously because of our chickens, is that you should thaw the turkey in the sink. That's not right either.
Okay, that's very interesting. So what sort of things do you look for when you're doing an inspection?
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things to look at. So the first thing we need to make sure is, number one, is the food from an approved source. If you have some bad food and you bring it in, you can make it look good, smell good, taste good, but is it going to be safe to eat? So it has to be safe first. Once you've got a safe food supply, then we got to look at proper storage, making sure it's stored properly, proper preparation, avoiding cross-contamination, making sure that foods are cooked and hot hold, and making sure that foods that are cooked are cooled down properly and reheated properly the next serving. And as well the equipment, making sure the equipment is working properly, making sure the temperature of the cooler is right, the temperature of the freezer, temperature of the dishwasher. Sanitation, making sure the right levels of chlorine is being used to sanitize, or quaternary ammonia or iodine. Qualified food handlers, making sure they know what they're doing, making sure that the senior staff that are qualified in food safety are helping the new person there. You're only as strong as the weakest link. And lastly, I also look at record keeping. What kind of records is the restaurant keeping? Maintaining to make sure that things are run smoothly.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah, you just can't come in and order a coffee and sit down and said you did your inspection.
Okay, so to end off, what are your top food safety tips to keep in mind?
Well, number one, as we said already, make sure the food is from an approved source. Keep things clean. Wash your hands, clean food contact surfaces, wash your fruits and vegetables. Keep things separate. Don't cross-contaminate. Cook to a safe temperature and make sure the hot holding is at a safe temperature. Make sure things are chilled properly and quickly. The number one reason that there's food poisoning is 30% of the illnesses are caused because of improper cooling. So in our course, we talk about that a lot. We really stress that a lot to make sure that people know there is a real easy way of cooling things down and how quickly can you do it. And reheating, making sure that foods are heated up as if they've never been cooked before, back up to that good old 74 degrees for 15 seconds. Most importantly, stay out of the danger zone. That is the number one golden rule for public health inspectors. If you keep food cold below 4 Celsius or hot above 60 Celsius, salmonella, Campylobacter, Listeria, all the food poisoning organisms won't double every 20 minutes.
Very good. So is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we end off?
I would just like to say thanks, Irene, for taking the time to think about food safety. It really impresses upon me the importance of food safety, and if anybody does have questions, they could get a hold of you or me in regards to food courses or food poisoning and reporting that to your local public health inspectors.
Yes, thanks so much for coming in today, Russell. There's so much to know about food safety, and we've only just gotten a taste. Your website is www.foodsafetyfirst.com to visit Russell's site.
That's right.
And you can also contact him through Russell at foodsafetyfirst.com or call him at 1306-291-4161.
Well, if it's okay with you, I'm going to have my lunch now.
Oh, go ahead. I'd also like to thank the audience for joining us for our food safety webinar today. And I'd like to give a special thanks to our guest, Russell Scott. If you have any questions for us, you can contact the SHSA at info@servicehospitality.com. We look forward to seeing you again at our future webinars. Have a great day.